we can. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from the Envirostatism chapter of Liberty and Tyranny, National Park Service ecologist David Graeber, please follow this. I think you're going to be stunned by this. Writing in the Los Angeles Times in 1989, well articulated the perversity of the extreme environmental movement. Folks, if you don't listen to this, you're not going to understand what we're up against. Now, the drones have already tuned out. They're tired. Their 3 brain cells have fallen asleep, and they're eating chocolate cake and watching some sitcom. Here's what this guy wrote, and he's famous now. He wrote, "We contaminated the planet with atmospheric hydrocarbons and metals beginning in the Industrial Revolution." He said, "The atomic age wrote another indelible signature in the radioisotopes on every bit of the Earth's surface. DDT and its kin appear even in Antarctic ice." He said, "I, for one, cannot wish upon either my children or the rest of Earth's planet a human-managed planet, be it monstrous or, however unlikely, benign." Got that? He said, "I am not interested in the utility of a particular species or free-flowing river ecosystem to mankind. They have intrinsic value, more value to me than another human body or a billion of them." Your Park Service, or at least somebody representing them. "Human happiness, and certainly human fecundity," it is a word, I looked it up, "are not as important as a wild and healthy planet." He said, "I know social scientists remind me that people are part of nature, but it isn't true. Somewhere along the line, at about 1 billion years ago, maybe half that, we quit the contract and became a cancer. We become a plague upon ourselves and upon the earth. It is cosmically unlikely that the developed world will choose to end its orgy of fossil energy consumption, and the third world its suicidal consumption of landscape. Until such time," here's the kicker, "as Homo sapiens should decide to rejoin nature, some of us can only hope for the right virus to come along." You think that's an extreme view? I want to tell you a little story. This is an important story. Also in Liberty and Tyranny. I wrote a few years ago, New York Slime's editorial writer, Tina Rosenberg, explained that, quote, "Today, Westerners with no memory of malaria," there's a reason for this, stick with me, "often assume it has always been only a tropical disease. But malaria was once found as far north as Boston and Montreal. Oliver Cromwell died of malaria. Shakespeare alludes to it in 8 plays. Malaria no longer afflicts the United States, Canada, Northern Europe, in part because of changes in living habits, the shifts to cities, better sanitation, window screens. But another reason was DDT, sprayed from airplanes over American cities and towns while children played outside," unquote. This isn't me. This is an editorial writer for the New York Slimes. So effective is DDT, I write, that in 1970, the National Academy of Sciences announced that to only a few chemicals does man owe a greater debt as to DDT. In little more than 2 decades, DDT has prevented 500 million human deaths due to malaria that would have otherwise been inevitable. But all of that changed. All of that changed in 1962 when Rachel Carson, an opponent of pesticides, succeeded in spreading widespread hysteria about DDT's effects on wildlife and especially children. In her book, Silent Spring, have you ever heard of that book? Carson decried the broad use of DDT. And so, it is a sickening irony that Carson's focus on children, she said children, were malformed, had mental problems as a result of DDT. Not one case has ever been proven. Not one. So it's a sickening irony that Carson's focus on children helped kill the use of DDT, when malaria is the cause of death of millions of children living in the undeveloped world. You see, the undeveloped world is the target of the environmentalist. It's the target. And the media gobbled up Carson's alarmism. President John Kennedy formed an advisory committee to investigate her claims. Congress held hearings. The Environmental Defense Fund and the Sierra Club brought litigation to pressure the government to ban DDT. An administrative law judge heard the case for months and ruled against them. He said it's not a carcinogenic hazard to man. It's not a mutagenic hazard to man. He said the use of DDT under the regulations involved here do not have deleterious effects on freshwater fish, organisms, wild birds, or other wildlife, let alone human beings. But the judge's ruling was rejected by the EPA administrator in 1972, William Ruckelshaus. The EPA was 2 years old, and he banned it anyway. He attended none of the hearings, and aides reported he had not read the hearing transcript before overruling the administrative law judge. At the time, Ruckelshaus belonged to the Audubon Society. He later joined the Environmental Defense Fund, which, along with the Sierra Club, was a budding organization. What's my point? In 2006, the World Health Organization announced that it would reverse years of policy and back the use of DDT in the Third World to stop malaria. That's 44 years since the book was written by Carson, and over 3 decades since all those people died from malaria and typhus and all these other horrific diseases. And even now, most of you think DDT is so horrible. We used to lather up our troops in World War II who went into the jungles of Southeast Asia and in the Philippines and other places because we knew there would be tons of mosquitoes that pass malaria and other diseases. It saved tens of thousands of American soldiers and Allied soldiers. DDT was said to be a wonder chemical. And so it's being reintroduced in 2006, and the Sierra Club and the Environmental Defense Fund still oppose it and have never apologized to the tens of millions of people who died on the religion of environmentalism. My point is, global warming is no different. They are going to destroy our economy, our way of life, our production of wealth. And I don't mean the rich, for you class warfare drones. I mean your job. I mean the guy that goes into the coal mine, the guy that works the oil patch, the guy that works on steel, the automobile industry, all the smokestack industries. You're under the gun, under a false science. People who do not care about the misery that they spread because they're not in this to make mankind better. They're in this to control mankind and to make mankind poorer because they believe you are a cancer on the face of the earth. That's the truth. If there is global warming, you have absolutely no control over it. The sun is a massive power of energy. Do you think we could ever build enough cars and spew enough carbon dioxide to affect the climate in this country one way or another? It's so absurd. And yet our bureaucracy marches on, no matter how cold the winters, no matter how clear the evidence, no matter how clear the faulty science that they use, they march on. So the EPA issues a finding to the president that carbon dioxide, which cannot possibly be any more a pollutant than water, that carbon dioxide that's used by plants through photosynthesis to create oxygen is a pollutant. And now they're going to use that to grab the throat of industry and destroy your jobs and wealth creation in this country at the very time we're in the middle of a terrible recession. The economy's on its back, and these damn fools at Congress are trying to destroy different aspects of the private sector. Now, they were wrong about DDT, and they're wrong about global warming. These people are idiots. They're power-craven. And yet, look at all the power that they have.